Good evening. Soon it will be almost 1 year since a new federal government has been constituted, as well as some state governments. And that is long enough for a new administration to demonstrate, or rather present, a strong and profound blueprint as to how it intends to govern. In Imo State, the new government floated the idea of free education for all, and according to sources, it is constantly financing the federal government police force allocated to Imo State. It is ironic indeed, because the federal government has a large fund compared to the states, and given the fact that our federal police force is regionally centralized, the force ought to be funded by the federal government. It is quite common to see a federal police car in Imo State with inscriptions indicating it has been donated by the Imo State government. I do not know the financial specifics of this seeming strange arrangement, whether the federal government would eventually refund the state, but it is obvious the federal government is not footing its own bill, that the state has to step in to expend the resources it barely has to ensure better security for Imo State. While this is a step in the right direction for the new Imo State governor because of his concern for safety, I wonder how long he would have to continue to finance the federal security role that would, and what would be the alternative forgone for the people of Imo State for him to bear this federal burden. The fact is that Imo State citizens need their resources. They need whatever is left of their funds after 12 years of shameless mismanagement and treasury looting. The new state governor should not hesitate to send to the federal government the total cost of financing the federal police force. For every million naira spent on the federal police force in Imo State, the consequence is a shortage of or lack of funds to administer the state. No state should be using its allocated resources to finance a traditional federal responsibility. Our federal government is guilty of doing dereliction over and over again, guilty of malfeasance, and its social and economic compasses need urgent repair if it truly intends to change the nation. About a month ago, our once famous international airport in Lagos was without electricity, and all in the night. And the most unfortunate side of it is that airport officials and employees carried on as if this was normal and simply fine. No one from the top to the bottom was held accountable. No one expresses concern nor regret, and Nigerians are expected always to say something nice about Nigeria. Well, I do not know who would be saying something nice when they are literally left in the dark. Words of courage and denial cannot set the nation on the path of real advancement. Actions and deeds will. Many nations have joined the great race to economic power and prosperity. Their industrial machines are constantly churning out products of great science and technology to outcompete each other. They are revolutionizing the world and consequently improving the quality of life of their people. This ought to be the most pivotal focal point of a nation like Nigeria. China has demonstrated that government can be the greatest driving force behind great economies, and not just the private sector. Obviously, we love the luxuries of life, judging from the degree of our desire to import. But we fail to see that we can equally create these luxury goods here in Nigeria. It is a matter of foresight, administrative excellence, and action. This eternal administrative failure cannot be justified or excused as some often do. It has been an unfortunate norm across the nation for decades, and it's about time that the new generation of leaders start to view this as unacceptable and have a system where men and women account for their actions or neglect and face certain retributions. I wonder if the President, the Minister of Aviation, and the top hierarchy are aware that such unfortunate scenarios play themselves out day by day in our nation, or do they equally feel that our administrators are performing their duties as needed? Why is it that a nation aspiring to lead, desiring to be accepted and recognized, fails time and time again to ignore the most fundamental duties it owes to her citizens and the world at large? An international airport is a symbol of pride and progress for any nation, and Nigeria is no different. With thousands of tourists and business individuals coming and going through this hub, one would think that nation leaders would exercise some degree of sensitivity and create a fairly decent and attractive airport environment, but obviously that is not the case. It rather continues to leave unfortunate impressions in the minds of potential investors that our nation is yet to emerge from the dark ages indeed. An impression that the nation is not conducive for business or tourism. Every day, federal appointments are made, and again, I have many Nigerians who wonder the essence of these appointments when the basic jobs or duties of these appointments are not carried out. Maladministration continues to be the norm, and even the mass media see no reason or need to raise concerns and expose such gross failures. There is no great public awareness or education, and as long as the mass population remains silent and passive, every successive government reruns the same pattern of public administration and the nation suffers. The quality of every public government service falls very short of expectation. Journalists and mass and media institutions are busy trying to curry favor with every level of government, that instead of working as watchdogs, they become accomplices to fraud and other crimes. Every concerned Nigerian ought to assume the responsibility of protecting public interest by articulating all these needless shortcomings of our government. It is a colossal embarrassment and evidence of a dysfunctional state when no one assumes responsibility of anything, including those who are paid with public funds to do so. It is a painful and regrettable condition, the lack of any genuine interest on the part of public servants to see that things are done right and done to meet basic standard levels of good government and administration. The Nigerian system is now punishing probity and encouraging vice. A leader that stands up for the common good is targeted and eternally silenced. He or she becomes an aberration, a thorn in the flesh of those who want to maintain the status quo of greed and violence, and a total disinterest and disregard for the common good. And given the fact that there are no retributions, selfishness and raw power all become enticing tools for certain individuals to achieve their goals. Until we have a strong national government that is devoid of partisanship, narrow interest, and ready to insist on both individual and institutional accountability, ready to respect the laws of the nation, ready to embrace and promote the traditional blindness of justice, ready to aggressively take legal retributive actions to discourage the kinds of total disregard for good job performance, for probity, the nation will continue to teeter towards paralysis, anarchy, and general uncertainty. And the longer this syndrome persists, the lack of meaningful public order, the more the possibility of both political fringe elements and violent criminal entities gaining irreversible strongholds on the mainframe of life in the nation. The time is overdue for our national government to act boldly in arresting this growing epidemic of disregard and lawlessness. This consistent pattern of general weakness with our national and state governments in the face of lawlessness, in the face of mayhem, sends the most defeatist message anyone can imagine. I keep wondering what these governments' priorities are, what their preoccupations are, that it seems that they have abdicated their responsibilities of ensuring law and order. Nigeria's problem is in administration. The resources are there to provide basic needs of Nigerian citizens. Nigerians have suffered long enough. They have suffered in the hands of our leaders and suffered equally in the hands of one another. Actions that are atrocious, that impact on both national security and individual safety, are treated with lip service and disregarded. Punishment for crimes is the only strong deterrent against this menace, and the president ought to offer a new direction that ensures strict discipline, swift justice, and public order. He ought to establish a constant link between him and fellow Nigerians and be willing to learn from criticism. He ought to push for greater accountability and encourage law enforcement on a much larger and regular scale. A thorough system of oversight from his office to the lowest office is essential. Make clear and open examples of those in higher places. It is in the best interest of all Nigerians that a new public and legal order is established to to stem the ever-rising tide of fraud that is crippling the nation. The nation is capable of reversing this ugly trend if it is willing to make the necessary sacrifices. Inefficiency should be seriously attacked. For a major airport to operate without electricity in this very age of overwhelming advances in science and technology is shameful. The cost of using solar energy as a second source of energy to power the airport is so small. Since our independence, Nigerians have almost lamented daily over NEPA's inefficiency, and yet no government has made it a top priority to fix this long-standing problem. Our police force is ill-equipped, and so much are gone by criminals, and yet no strong measures are taken to solve this problem. Newspapers are daily reporting on the many officers killed in line of duty, and yet our nation leaders seem to be clueless as to how to regain control of our streets and our roads. The officers are also complaining because of the deaths and mayhem incurred by the federal police force from armed bandits, but factually, it is the same police force whose officers are daily compromising the law for individual financial gains. It is the same top brass who are embezzling the funds to equip the force, and I do not know why, how, and where the force will point fingers for the predicament it faces in line of duty. If they desire change, if they are truly honest with themselves, they should find the man and the man or the woman in the mirror for solutions. Given all these unattended issues and circumstances, it would not be wrong nor pessimistic to forecast a bleak future for our nation. At that very moment, we would all face same painful experiences, both the rich and the poor. Nigerians ought to take heed by now. It is only the fool that shoots himself or herself in the foot. Our actions will come back to haunt us in due time. Thank you, and have a Merry Christmas.